Hello again, Steve here, and a few words tonight on my thoughts that we are in several ways, at least two ways, being demonized. And when I say demonized, I'm not saying demonized. De-man-ized. We often hear the term dehumanized. Well, I'm going to tighten that up a little bit and call it demanizing. Because for at least two reasons. Okay, the first one is that as men, the males of the species man, there are many men in the form of women. When I say this, I mean in the old sense. I once read a book by Wallace Wattles, and he talks, because back in the day when people would say man, they didn't necessarily mean the guy with the junk hanging between his legs. They meant human beings, right? And he made this statement that some things are hard to grasp for men, especially if that man is a woman. And he meant it seriously, because that's what they meant back then, right? Because, well, that's that lingo they used. But in the first case, though, that we are demonized, I'm talking about the male of the species man. There's been quite a few generations of feminism. Now, there was obviously a need for feminism because, the pendulum had swung to the point where women they weren't seen as equal, right? So the pendulum had to swing towards equality. But whenever there's a pendulum swing, it often goes the other way, to the extreme. So it seems like now that there's this big push to feminize everything and to have gender equality, but what that means is gender inequality, because it's a push to help women into this and to help women into that, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but in the process there's a demanization of situations. I've seen in one example where there was a job for hiring a manager, and the agenda was we want a woman. So there was 4 or 5 guys applied, 1 woman applied. She got the job, and everybody knew she wasn't up to some of the guys in terms of her abilities to manage. But that's an example of demanization, in my opinion. Now, the other one is, but this is even more important, because that's sort of petty, really, in a way, because that's just a pendulum swing, which will eventually even out. It'll have to, right? But the other demonization, is I'm talking about man in general. This is sort of along the lines of the dehumanization. But I like to just cut out the hue part, and let's call ourselves man, because we get ourselves in trouble with legalese whenever we depart from man. Notice how legalese never touches man, right? No obligations on man whatsoever. Human being, it's almost, right? Because it's like that natural person kind of case, right? But the demonization that takes place in the whole governmental society, legal society, and so on, is this whole person thing, right? This persona that we create, this legal persona that we create, that we live through our banking jobs and so on, and we enter into it. It's almost like we descend. We are demonized as we descend into what we create and live through what we create. And I would say that perhaps part of the path to our emancipation, to our liberation, is to come back to man up, right? Come back up again. Man up and be the men and the women of the species man that we are born to be, to live, to truly live, rather than demonizing ourselves and letting others demanize us. I know it's a bit of a play on a word, but I thought of it today and thought I'd share a few words. For whatever it's worth, my hope is that we do less demanization of any type, whether that is the pendulum swinging too far that way, the pendulum swinging too far this way. It is all unnatural, I would say. In the long run, the pendulum is meant to come together. That men can be men of the man species, women can be women of the man species, and that we can be ourselves and not demanize ourselves by entering into constructs that we have created and somehow thinking that that is us, legitimately us, where it's not. It's our creation. It's like our cars or our birdhouses or whatever. We create them as tools, we can use them, but we have to remember that we can remain as men and women and stand firm with that. Stand firm with that. Are you that person? Well, I'm the live man standing here with the beating heart. Is that what you mean by that person? Nah, didn't think so. All right, well then I will man up and stand where I am. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye-bye for now.